Hello there, this is Tim Seldin, President of the Montessori Foundation, and this is our weekly webcast. Today is Wednesday, June the 8th, 2016, and our guest today is once again Jono Landon. Jono is the founder of a company called Hubly, and I met him some months ago when he was talking to me about how do you basically not train your parents to ignore all your communications and create a lot of engagement. I've talked to many wonderful people about this topic over the years, but if you're like me, these are hard lessons to learn, and I found Jono to have some really useful perspectives about this, and I wanted to have him back on and ask him to speak about the topic of why and how can you organize a blog. I don't know if you're like me, but I know I should be doing it. I know how to write, but somehow, who has the time? And Jono, I think you have some ideas about why it's important and how we can get around our limited time. Jono, thanks for coming with us. And Michael Dorer, thank you for co-hosting with me as always.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Tim, and hi, Jono. Nice to meet you.
Likewise, a real pleasure. And I just want to make sure you guys are hearing me okay. So Tim, can you just give me just an okay that my audio is coming through?
Your audio seems to be fine to me, Jono.
Excellent. Okay, well, really excited to be back with you guys. And as you mentioned, the topic of today's webinar is all about blogging and how schools should be using them, as part of their overall marketing and communication strategy. I also want to mention that I'm going to point out some specific action tips throughout the webinar. So make sure you have your pen and paper or your digital note-taking apps at the ready, because you want to make sure you get these down. I think that these little action items are usually some of the most valuable takeaways from webinars like this. I attend a lot of webinars, and I've seen this used, and I wanted to implement it here as well. So that's why I'm making such a point to talk about them. There's also going to be a free downloadable cheat sheet to complement the information in the webinar, and I'll be sending that. We'll be sending that to you afterwards, and so you'll get an email on that. And lastly, the last time Hubly and the Montessori Foundation did a webinar together, it was kind of an off-the-cuff offer that we made to all the attendees for a free website assessment, and the response was actually huge. So since it was so popular last time, I figured we should do it again. So we're going to do the same thing today and offer an overall web communications assessment so you can get a good idea as to how you can improve your overall digital communication strategy. Of course, a huge part of that is your blog, and that's the topic of today. So, okay, so moving on. So what is a blog, right? It's kind of funny, like it started out being called a web blog, and then, of course, like the lazy internet community had to shorten it down to just the word blog because, that's what we do. And I think it's important also for us to talk about what are the goals of a blog. So what does a successful blog mean? So with blogs, the general business case is that you're posting original articles on your website, and there are different uses of a blog depending on the business you're operating. But generally speaking, they all have two main goals. One is to engage your current customers, and the other is to engage prospective customers. So both of these are meant to increase your revenues. It's really that simple. It's not a place to just wax poetically. This is a business implementation. So we're on the same page. This is about using the written word to make your current and prospective customers happy to pay you money, essentially, to get really down to brass tacks. So if we use that to set our direction, we can start to frame the use case of a blog or a school fairly easily. So I think, the number one rule of blogging, and maybe one that, as Tim kind of mentioned, is something that's ever more challenging, is to write often and consistently. And we'll get into like some practical ways of doing that, but the best way to keep parents informed is to update one of the best ways anyways is to update your blog as often as possible. And once parents see that your school's blog is the best way to learn more about the school, and when I say parents, I mean not just existing but prospective parents, they'll be more likely to use it as a source. So your blog is a great place to answer common questions that prospective parents might have. So if you notice, like what you want to do is you want to take notice of like questions that you're getting, through your enrollment process or your inquiry process about the school, and you want to, maybe it's like questions about like bus routes or extracurriculars or anything that's a common question. You can create posts about those, that dive deeper into these topics, as opposed to just pasting all this information on static pages in your website. The blog can oftentimes be a much better way to communicate this stuff. And I really want to say that often is important, but even more important than often is being consistent. So whether your school is like just thinking about starting a blog, or you're dusting off the cobwebs from sort of maybe an inactive blog. One of the biggest things to keep in mind with blogging is consistency. Like, one of the most important elements of internet marketing is trust. And I know I'm talking to education experts and early childhood education experts, and I think everybody understands. So I don't need to beat a dead horse. Like, trust is built with consistency, and I think you all get that. Right, so now this doesn't necessarily mean that you need to post every day. You don't want to. It shouldn't feel like an overwhelming task. But you need to create a posting schedule and stick to it. This could be this could be every other week. To start out, that might be something you can handle and start to create an operation around. But you want to send out a post around the same time and on the same day each week. By creating a consistent schedule, parents will come to expect an update, and they'll be eager to see what's in store every week. Plus, posting regularly can establish your school as a trustworthy authority. Sort of like a reassuring distinction for both new parents and existing ones. Now, this is when you want to pull out.
If I could just step here for a sec, I think everyone out there understands what you're saying.
Yep.
They almost certainly agree, but I think that they must have a lot of questions. And one that comes up for me is, okay, you're talking about blogging to current parents, you're talking about blogging to prospective parents. I would suspect a lot of the people who are listening to this struggle with, well, wait a minute, what are the topics that ought to be in my blog? Are we talking about stuff that's happening at school? Are we telling parents to show up at a specific place at a specific time, and we're sending that out to the public? Or are we sending it just to a certain audience? And well, who are we talking to, and what should we say to them?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I do have a lot to say on that topic, and we're actually just about to jump into that. Before we do, this is actually an idea about how you can maybe practically manage a consistent schedule, and basically my next point, Tim, is going to get right to your question. But this is something I want to make sure you guys you take this idea as a takeaway. You can use your teachers, you can use your team. Everyone you work with, probably has a great head on their shoulders, and they've got something to say, and they've got a personality. So, just one way to make this easy is to set up a schedule, a bit of a calendar, a shared calendar, and everybody, gets assigned a week, and they pick a topic, and they post something. And it's, good. Obviously, you're going to have like a bit of a review process, but that might be a way to use your existing team in a practical sense to keep a consistent blog schedule. And Tim, now we're on the topic you just brought up. What to write about, right? Like, you want to be writing useful parent-focused content. That's the best use case for a blog. And so you're asking maybe about certain events and things like that, and I think there are better ways to communicate specific events on your website. But I think that the goal of your blog is to share value-added content that you should kind of think of as like a gift that you're giving people. Like, it literally should be something that people would actually pay for, like that they might actually buy, for a few bucks. It should actually be that useful and engaging. So the strategy is to be posting content, that your prospective parents can benefit from, whether they enroll at your school or not. Like, it should be really clear that like every single blog post should be, its own tool that can be taken and used, something that's informative. This is how you gain trust as experts in the field of teaching and raising children. So that when they come to the point of deciding whether to place their child with your school or go down the street to the new one that just popped up, like, they'll be more likely to go with your school because they know you already. You're already teaching them. They already have a relationship with you. Like, really, I mean, like, if you've got parents that are getting helpful content from you on a regular basis, they're getting to know you. They're getting to know your philosophy, what you value, your personality. All that stuff comes through in writing, and they might already be. You might already be educating their children if you think about it, right? Because if you're giving the parents helpful advice at home, ways to approach different challenges, like some ideas could be, how to get your kids to eat healthy, or top 3 strategies for handling sibling fights. To come up with these blog ideas, you just have to put yourself in the shoes of these parents, and say, hey, what's driving them crazy today, and match that with the wisdom that's existing inside your school, right? Like, I think the point of a blog is this connection point between the amazing things that are going on in the walls of your school, and communicating that to the outside world so that you can bring people into your school. So in addition to using like a theme each week, you want to write down also, I would say, relevant topics that parents care about. So if you're taking that strategy of working with your teachers and your mid team to like sort of schedule out topics and a workflow, you can get everyone to do a little research too. Like, that should be part of it. Go on to parent blogs, see what people are talking about, what's trending, what is going to be important, not just in general, but also like right now. Like, what is there something happening in are there trends that are happening? Is there maybe a flu outbreak in the area? So anything. You want to hit people with relevancy as much as possible. So
you're not talking necessarily about what's happening at your school. For
That's
example,
right.
I think most of us would be, we typically would want to photograph of kids with a little text, and we all fear violating a parent's sense of confidentiality.
I know you get yours, probably the yours.
Right.
Sounds to me like someone has the microphone unmuted. Let me see if I can find out who that is.
Well, while you're looking for that, Tim, can you hear me there, Jono? It's Michael.
Yes, I can. Hi.
It sounds to me like any of us who've worked in a school for any period of time probably have a list of frequently asked questions that we just know come up over and over and over again. It seems to me that could be the genesis of the beginning. You want to start off a blog, you know that parents are going to ask about the organization of the school. They're going to ask all sorts of things about how classrooms run. How do you teach reading? What's the Montessori approach to discipline? What about toilet training at home? These are things that I mean, we could sit down and make a list right away off of those FAQs.
Yeah, and I think that depending on the type of information, the blog is the right place for that, or static web pages on your website are better places for that. And I think that and that takes a little bit of just being a web communication expert as opposed to a school or a teaching or education expert, where there's what you really have to try to do is manage your information architecture to place the different pieces of content in the most appropriate place that and this is maybe the most important element of this, where parents would expect to find it, because they people that like everybody that uses websites today, your parents are going to be pretty active. They're going to have common behaviors. They're going to be used to certain information patterns, and you want to make sure that your website matches those, and that you're not blogging with information that they're used to seeing on regular web pages, and you're not putting sort of like information that they would expect to see on a web page inside of a blog article. Like things need to match with really what the rest of the world is doing, so that your communication style doesn't come into conflict with their expectations, and that's so crucial.
Jono, that's a really important point that you're bringing up. And again, one person has asked the question: is a blog better than a Facebook page?
Yeah, they're really different. And this is the thing. Like a Facebook page and a blog, although they're related and connected, have they just have different approaches. I mean, a blog is you have to think of each one of these different tools with the same type of distinction as you would between a pamphlet and a billboard, right? Like a pamphlet and a billboard. Really, I mean, they're both advertising, collateral that are meant to help you, generate revenue from new customers, but they're in a different context. The style that you write them with is different. The copywriting is a different style. They obviously are in a different location. You're not going to put a big billboard in your school office, but you're going to have a stack of pamphlets there, right? So, like, you have to also think about Facebook and Twitter and your blog and stack pages on your website as, these are all different pieces that are all interconnected. And the thing that I find fun about, the digital communication tools is how they can interact with each other and help each other along. And it's really fun to tie them in together and see. And actually, what's really cool is you can actually track how people kind of go through them and what they do, and you can A/B test them. And I'm getting into like topics that I could just talk about for hours, but to try to focus on the topic of today, which is one piece, and I really do believe that the blog is the most important part of your digital communication or digital marketing platform if it's used correctly. And I mean like just using basic best practices, which I generally don't see happening inside schools. I see schools using different tools really the wrong way most of the time, and I see, yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's why we came up with Hubly, because our goal is to like help schools not try to be, so that they don't have to become experts in all these different tools, and just like boom, here you go. Here's a platform that does everything the way you need it to, according to like best practices across all industries, but kind of specialized for schools. And so that's why I could rant about what I see at schools, but I try not to get too off track here. But I think that what you want to remember, is that on a high level, just in general, the topics that you're blogging about need to be relevant, and you shouldn't. And you really, another thing you might want to keep in mind is you don't want to plan too far out. So because if you're trying to be as relevant as possible, you're going to hit on some things that are kind of popular in the moment, but not be all that much of a big deal in 6 months. So there's information you're going to communicate that it's timeless, and you want to do that as well. And that gets down to like Montessori approach to different forms of education, or but when you're also trying to hit parents with different kinds of communication, different kinds of content that is engaging and hitting them in different aspects of their lives, you don't need to think about a 6-month strategy. You want to just kind of keep it 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. It also just helps you keep your planning sessions a little shorter. And you might want to ask just like a small portion of your teachers at a time, to contribute ideas to a list, so you can plan out, the next 2 months. And once that time's passed, just roll, grab another batch of teachers. Obviously, depending on the size of your school, you might not have a whole, you might not have 2 batches. You might have only 1 batch, but that just helps, make sure that your blog is, constantly fresh, and has topics that are still relevant. Another really important thing here, and I don't think that schools have a problem with this, it's just being authentic. And this is just kind of, like this is the type of thing that really, really helps, engage both, current and prospective parents. So on top of being relevant, you just want to make sure that your blog showcases your school's values, and really is always kind of comes back to your school's mission. So like, if the goal is to connect with parents and build a welcoming community, then authenticity is really important. And to do this, you need to find topics that are relevant, but also reiterate the message and the values of your school. Like maybe your school has a big emphasis on volunteering. And I see this with all of our different customers, right? So like I see some schools that are like really, really, really big on volunteering. Like their parent packet has, they use Hubly's digital enrollment. So, they'll have like, I don't know, I've seen some schools with up to like 50 different, parent volunteering opportunities that they select through their their digital parent packet on Hubly. But some schools don't do that, some schools do a lot of fundraising, and some don't do any fundraising. I've got schools that say we charge tuition and we don't want to ask our parents to, about donations or to badger their families. And some schools, it's like a big, big part of their, of their culture. So you want to show that. You want to show what makes you different. So, anything that's important to you guys. So find topics that relate to these messages, and then you can also in doing so you can actually help gain more support from your parents. Keeping them informed on what you're doing and why you're doing it, with more relevant issues. And I want to mention, so like I kind of said before, like, some information should be here and some information should be there. I would say, keeping parents informed of what you're doing is probably better done in a calendar, a shared calendar, a public calendar. But why you're doing it, that's the blog. And I think that's kind of the distinction, right? You don't want, please do not, and I see this happening at so many schools, and it makes me cringe, but I see blogs and newsletters going out with just details and details and details, lists of things and what's going on, and like reminders and announcements. And that is not what a blog is for. There's better ways of communicating that information in context so that people are informed the way they actually prefer to be informed, but just dumping everything on everybody like a catch-all fire hose, that is not how you, number one, that's not how you get parent engagement, because it's just too much and it's boring, and it's not how you engage, certainly not prospective families. And even existing families, they don't want that either. I can tell you right now, if that's what you're doing, you're actually training your parents to ignore you, and that's like my catchphrase. Like schools today train their parents to ignore them, and it's the reason why.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen. If you keep on getting emails from anybody, any business organization, where 90% of the information is irrelevant to you, and you have to sift through it and find like one or two sentences or one event in a list of 30 that actually matter to you, that's just not an enjoyable experience. Compare that to actually being taught a lesson about how to get your kids to eat more vegetables, with something that's entertaining and has a nice light, that's something that parents care about and are going to read every word and enjoy it and share it with all their friends. Can you imagine what would happen if all of your parents took an article that you wrote and shared it on Facebook to all of their friends, right? If they just said, hey, click share. People on average have 125 Facebook fans. I think that's the average right now, Facebook friends. And let's just say, I think on average about 25% of their friends will see your post in their feed. If you do the numbers, that's really exciting, because guess what? I mean, if you want to help your enrollment, get your parents to promote your school to their friends, right? Let's be honest, that's the best way to boost your enrollment. Good content is your most likely opportunity to actually get your parents to promote your school. Don't tell them to take this pamphlet and shove it in their friends' faces. Just give the parents great content that they enjoy and value, and they're going to share it with their friends, because if they like it, then their contemporaries are going to like it, and they want to help their friends too. That's how you grow your school. And if you want that not to happen, then send a 4-page newsletter or blog post with one sentence that matters to the parent, because they're just going to ignore it, and they're certainly not going to share it. And so we at Hubley, we actually track parent, the parents' engagement of all communications that are sent from the school outward, and what we see is a much higher engagement from the more relevant the information is, the higher it's engaged. Meaning, the more relevant, what I mean is the higher percentage of relevancy. So, what you should really be doing is sending parents only 100% relevant information, and a blog should be, your blog post should be 100% relevant to your customer base, your market, your existing customers and your prospective customers. And the great thing is they're the same people. And in this content, it's going to speak to both. If you're hitting the right topics and writing the right content, you don't have to think about separate articles for existing and and perspective, they're the same people. They need the same information. Like, this should be, they're going to go to the store and buy the same book. Right? They should, that's the type of information that they should be getting from you. Stuff that, like, they will just use whether or not they're a parent at your school. And that's really the bottom line, is to create topics that resonate with parents, and they'll be happy to share your school virally. And the point is, you don't want to try to force it, as I kind of mentioned before. So when choosing topics, you want to identify, like, the underlying theme or the message that the post is trying to drive home. And just, as much as you can, tie it into what your school stands for. And you're going to be doing that. You don't have to, like, break your head over that. By simply communicating it, you'll be telling people what your school stands for. And it's not like, the other Montessori school or the other private school or the daycare, a mile away stands for something so drastically different. That's not really the point. You guys could have the exact same philosophy, but what's happening is you're creating the relationship with that parent, and they're going to appreciate that, and they're going to feel that they know you, because they will know you, because they're learning about you by this content.
I have to take an opportunity to remind people that one of the Foundation's key projects is Tomorrow's Child. And the reason why that should matter to you, even though Jono is talking about why you need to create your own personal message line that defines your unique school and you need to become trusted as an expert, is Tomorrow's Child and Montessori Family Alliance helps you to make the case that their parents and your school is part of a much larger worldwide community. And, they're not just part of one school. And for a lot of parents, that's really important.
I would also say, along with that, like I mentioned before, a magazine and a blog are different. And they are engaged in a different context, and they offer people a different experience and a different value point. And there are great uses for magazines, and I think that Tomorrow's Child is an excellent resource. That I've gotten to know Tim, and I've gotten to know the Montessori Foundation, and this is a source. If you're a Montessori school, that's a tool to certainly, I would say, help keep your parent body engaged and into what's happening and why they're at your school. And I think that it makes a lot of sense to probably even take some tips or maybe some topic advice from what's in that magazine, and then put more of a personal spin on it or reference it. I think it's that will actually help. Having access to that information would probably help whoever is either managing or writing the blog create a content strategy and a reference point. So I think that I said my fourth kind of rule on blogging is just changing up your posts. So it shouldn't be limited only to writing and posting articles. Some weeks people just don't have the time to read an article, and some weeks they have they have a lot of time, but others, they don't have really more time than to just look at a picture. So you want to switch up the types of posts you publish every week to keep parents interested. And you can post, an article about chickenpox one week and post a video or an image or a quote, with a short snippet. The next week, just you should just feel free to, do things that are even funny. Post a funny video you saw trending on Facebook or Twitter. Like it's a great way to express personality and show, again, develop that relationship with the parents. Show them that you guys are people, and you have senses of humor, and there's a lot of different great stuff out there. It doesn't all have to be heady or super passionate. It can be fun and light, and your parents will appreciate that too. And it'll keep them coming back and engaging. Yeah. So I really do. I encourage you to mix it up, to help keep your parents engaged, because you'll get some attrition if it's just kind of the same thing over and over again. But if you change it up, you'll get that. You'll be able to keep that engagement. So, as an action tip, another thing you might want to write down, videos, quotes, images, but and as much as they can align with your message that the school is trying to convey, the better. But sprinkle them throughout your blog updates. So, I would say that the four most important things to keep in mind as far as types of content, or what the content should be. It should be educational, it should be helpful, and it should be inspiring, and really just all of it needs to be just really cohesive with your school's message, and I think that's the focus of this. So now, kind of taking it to the next step here is, how is a blog used strategically, right? Like, this is where I kind of nerd out a bit, but how do you actually build a digital marketing strategy that is simple but effective and automated? And I think that's the key thing here. It's like, you want to have certain things that you do. You want to, obviously writing the content is something that you have to do, but tying it into a system that helps you, that sort of takes the workload off and helps you kind of grow your business without having to become a digital, marketing expert or master all these different tools. That's the ideal. So, the question is, like, how do you make sure that, like, the value you're building in your business with all this great content is actually realized, now. So what I'm going to show you here is a simple, and kind of standard inbound lead generation funnel that works pretty much for any business, and certainly for a school. And so the first step is, on the far left, you see Facebook and search, right? And that's where a prospective parent would find one of your blog posts. Either by searching online for something that's relevant, or seeing it in their Facebook feed. So we talked about parents sharing it. You could also place an ad that puts that the blog post right into Facebook. So if someone's asking, what's the difference between a Facebook page and a blog post? Well, a Facebook page is, that's I would actually say every time you add a blog post, it should automatically be pushed out to your Facebook page, but not the entire thing, just basically a summary and then a link to your blog, right? So that's what you do with a Facebook page, so that the people that are following you or liking your page will be informed that there's a new blog post out. So it's part of your sort of automated system. When you write that post and you publish it, it gets pushed out to Facebook. And so that's how you do your blog post. Now, once they're on your blog post, so if you take a look at that middle image there, that says blog post, just a little wireframe design of a blog post, you'll notice on the right side there's that little form, and what we call that is like an opt-in form, or in a school like an inquiry form. So every time somebody's reading one of your blog posts, they're not going to fill that out, but either they will the first time or maybe they'll never. But a percentage of people that read your blog post, especially if they're reading it over and over again, they're gonna want to get in touch with you, or when it's the right time. Either right now they're looking for a school, or maybe their kid's in another school, but they're engaging your content because their friends shared it on Facebook, and they love your blog post and they're reading it. It's informative, and coming next year, they might want to inquire about switching schools, so they can fill out that form. A couple things can happen automatically. So they can go, or these are the things that Hubly suggests. Our system does this. Now, you don't need Hubly to do this. You can use a bunch of different tools to make all this work. Hubly makes all this work all in one without you having to figure anything out. We have all these tools built into the same system. But each one of these steps, there's multiple, myriad of tools for each one of these individual steps that you can kind of cobble together. So after they fill out that form, they can start getting automated emails. So that's what so if you notice, there's an arrow down to the email drip. So what that means is just drip. That means like on a regular basis, every time you post a blog article, you're going to send them a newsletter, specifically saying, hey, so-and-so, just want you to know about our latest article. Click here to check it out. And they're going to get it on a schedule, just like your blog is a schedule. And then also, when they fill out that inquiry form, so that just happens no matter what. But if they fill out the inquiry form, the next thing that they're going to see immediately is they're going to get taken to what's generally called a thank you page, which is, thanks for, filling out the inquiry form. And one thing we suggest be on that page is an actual schedule to that where they can automatically sign up for a tour. So that's another thing that Hubly has. Automatically they can be taken to a page where they can just go ahead and select an available tour session, tour appointment that you've pre-organized, that's tied into your schedule and everything. So so now the prospect is prospective parents added to your system, and they can receive weekly email newsletters, and then of course you have their contact information, and so in the worst case scenario, they're just going to keep on getting really awesome, helpful content from you and just appreciate you. And in the best case scenario, they're going to sign their kids up in your school. And a system like this can make it really, simple, and where all you have to do is make sure that you focus on what you do, and let the system do what it does, which is make sure that it's getting your great content in front of the eyeballs of the right people and engaging them and keeping them in the loop to know how to reach out to you and go through your onboarding process. So that's really, I think, I mean, first of all, I'd love to field some questions on this if there are any, but I think that's, hopefully I've covered in general how you want to approach the blog content, what type of content should be in there, and where does that sit in your strategy? How do you actually use this to grow, the most important, key performance indicators of a school, which is, of course, how well are the kids being educated, but also, are you actually growing? Are you filling up your enrollment? Do you have, are you getting that waiting list, or are you under capacity? And so this is meant to really help on that, enrollment, capacity increase.
So I see you talk about email drip. I suspect people wonder what that is.
Okay. Email drip is, it's kind of a general term, but all that really means is that, the people that have signed up or quote unquote opted in are getting regular communications from you that is just about letting them know that you've got more great content for them to read. In the most basic sense. I mean, you can be a little bit more strategic, or you can do some cool little tricks in there. But essentially, if your drip just means like it's just dripping on a regular basis. It's drip content. So they, let's say you post one blog post a week, which I think is really the sweet spot for a school. Then every time you post a blog, there should be an email newsletter, which is your drip, that goes out, that morning to inform all the people on that list, to go check out the new blog post. And that's just a drip every week, Monday at 11 a.m. or, whichever day you think is best. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it makes sense to me. Tim, I'm wondering, are you seeing questions coming in? Because I'm not able to see them for some reason.
Really? No, there haven't been any new ones. Now, here's the big one. Shalene asks, does the blog stay on the school page, or is it recommended that you email it to the parents? Again, I think, Jonah, this is really valuable. She's talking about an RSS feed or some kind of way of communicating what's posted to blog. So can you take us again through what is the difference between a blog and a web page?
Yeah, so absolutely. So, well, I think specifically what she's asking about, should they just come there to find it, or should you be, emailing them to let them know that there's a new post? And really, that's what
you just be sending out an email. And I think that she's basically asking, how the devil do they know a blog got posted?
Exactly. So you want your system to do that automatically. And I mean, it's not that hard to do it manually either. Or at least, what you want to do is set up a few posts in advance and set up some emails to go out in advance to, you might want to set that up for 4 weeks in advance, so that, that Monday morning at 11 a.m., everybody on the list that has, that is signed up or opted in, is getting that touch point from you. That's simply just a value add. You're not asking for anything. You're not whacking them over the head with a bunch of kind of boring information about dates and announcements. It's just, hey, I mean, and so this can be completely separate from other, and this should be separate from other communication. Please do not try to sort of mash everything into one email. Make sure that you think about these different forms, these different kinds of content. You want them to be sort of categorical. This is blog. This is our blog newsletter. And it is its own thing. It's like, it's not. It's almost like it's not even connected to your school. I mean, it is. Obviously, it's coming from your school, but it's not about reminding people about other things going on. Like, just keep it totally clean and keep it just 100% giving. Like, that is the point here. Like, this content is a gift. You're not asking for anything. You're not trying to remind people. It's just, here, take this. You're welcome. And that's what it should be. And the newsletter, that goes out regularly, you want to inform people of that content. You don't want to just, essentially, just sitting back and waiting, expecting people to just come, to your website that's just not going to happen. you might get one or two parents that are, that interested, but, you want to be sending it to them. And then so every time you send it to them, a percentage of them are going to open it, and read it, and a percentage of them aren't. And it's going to be a bigger percentage that don't. But every week, the people in that percentage are going to change, and it's as long as you're writing educational, useful, inspiring content, funny, lighthearted, uplifting, whatever it is, it's something that they actually enjoy and appreciate, then they're gonna keep you in a really positive light. They're gonna really appreciate their relationship with your school. And that's the goal of this. This is about building relationship with, the current or prospective customers so that they feel really good about parting with your $14,000, $15,000 tuition every year. That's what it's about. Like you're giving them value. You're just adding value to the relationship. That's all the blog is about. And by doing so, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and by doing so, you're helping your business bottom line, but you're doing it without even asking for business necessarily. Like if they read the article, like you're gonna have this call to action on the blog post, and a percentage of those viewers are going to enter into your enrollment funnel. And I want to actually talk about. Let me just minimize this for a second. Oops. Hold on. This is what I want to show here. So I've put together, just want to see, are you guys seeing this okay? This spreadsheet that I have?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try to make it a little bigger so it's a little more obvious here. Okay. So I want you guys to work through this with me. This is what I built as what I call the blog ROI calculator. Okay, a return on investment. That's what ROI stands for. I'm sure everyone already knew that. So let's just say that your school has 100 kids. Okay, maybe that's high, but this is just a row of some assumptions here, and I just want to basically show what a blog could do. But I want to get agreement from you guys and maybe from the audience as to what these assumptions should be. So let's just say you've got 100 kids. Is it fair to say that every year, you can get on average 10 new families enrolled, 10 new students?
Yeah. Okay.
So now, what percentage of new families are going to come from referrals? What I've heard, what I can assume is that 70% of those new families are going to be from word of mouth referrals. Is that accurate, or should we bump that up?
I think that word of mouth tends to be very significant.
Yes,
So what should that number be? Is 70 okay? Should we move it up?
70%, I think that, keeping in mind that most parents actually come to you having heard about you from multiple sources, through advertising, passing by the school day after day, whatever. But it's that personal comment of, oh, I send my kids to such and such, or, oh, you're looking for a school, you ought to consider this one. Or just someone asking and saying, hey, Tim, I'm thinking about sending my kid to that school. What do you think? That personal comment is probably the most compelling single thing.
Okay, so again, we're playing with assumptions here, and this isn't an exact science because it's pretty hard to know everything. But why don't we move this? We'll move this to 80%, and then we've got the next one here: percentage of new families that are from internet marketing. So we can move that down to 20%. Let's just say, if you're doing internet marketing, or we can actually even just say marketing. It doesn't have to be internet marketing. Okay, like just net new marketing. Of course, there could be a mixture. It probably is a mixture, but but we have to sort of wrap some kind of definition around these different categories, just for the sake of this calculator. And then also, I would say retention rate. So can I say that a fair sort of average retention rate of, non-graduating students is 80%? Like just to throw it out as is that a reasonable number?
I'd say that's higher than what a lot of schools actually experience. The ideal for a school is a 5% attrition, and 20% probably is, for some schools, is right, and for other schools it's too low. They have a 30 to 40% turnover.
Okay, so let's move this then to, let's just say 75%. Let's just try to, split this down the middle between the two. Okay, average tuition is $14,250 a fair average tuition, or just as a tuition, or is that too high, too low for the year?
It all depends on where you're located. That would be high for us in Minnesota. For people in either East or West Coast, it might be reasonable or even possibly low. So
all right, let's move it down to 12. Okay, does that sound right?
It does to me.
Okay, good. So what I've got here now is I've got some numbers here. So what's happening in this D column here is current estimated revenue. So percentage of new families that come from referrals, that's now going to be $98,000 based off these assumptions, okay? And then the percentage of new families that are from internet marketing or just marketing is 24,500, and then revenue from retention at a 75% retention rate is 918,000, so almost $1 million. Okay, now I'm going to throw a number out here. Like what a blog can do, what impact it can have on these numbers. So my assumption is, if a blog is used well, correctly, okay, and maybe not just blog on its own, but if it's used within an actual like strategy, a sound, digital marketing strategy, it can have, I think it's fair to say, a 10%, positive increase, not overall, but just on top of these numbers. So, 80% would move to 88%, 20%, 22, 75, right? So what we're talking about is taking 10% and adding it to these numbers here, right? Not obviously average tuition. Maybe you can increase your tuition, but that's a different lever altogether. So I think that if you use if you have a really strong marketing strategy that can improve these three levers by 10%, that's an increase of $100,000, over $100,000. So I think that if things are broken down, I mean, every single business in the world has the same basic, levers for tracking success, right? There's traffic, opt-ins, conversions, units per sale, average dollar amount per unit. All these things that translates to every single business that exists in the world, right? Whether you're a shoe store or a software company or a school. What those things differ, meaning traffic at a shoe store is people like literally walking by and walking into your shoe store, as opposed to traffic for, a software company or a social network is, people finding it online, right? An opt-in at a shoe store would be somebody saying, hey, can I try on a pair of shoes? That's like an opt-in, right? An opt-in for Hubly is when a school comes to our website and signs up for a demonstration of the Hubly school management software. So that's our opt-in, right? An opt-in for a school is filling out an inquiry form or scheduling a tour. That's an opt-in. Those are two opt-ins, right? So like all of these things, if you were to take the approach of trying to incrementally take each one of those different stages, those different, I like to call them levers. I didn't come up with that, but there's just levers that, affect your bottom line. If you take the approach of trying to improve each one of them by 10%, right? Then you're, and that's not going from 10% overall. It's just taking the current rate and moving that up 10%. Then what you've got is a really sort of pragmatic way to go through your business and improve everything without trying to improve everything by 100%. But if you improve everything by 10%, you actually see 100% overall revenue increase. And that's actually true. If you take each one of those, there's 7 levers. If you take each one of them, and every month you focus on one lever, improving it by 10%, you've actually got 100% revenue growth. So it's possible. Obviously, there's ceilings. There's only so many kids you can get into your school, and there's only so much you can charge for tuition, and but if you want to get to your capacity, your actual targets, you want to hit all these different aspects, and your marketing strategy is really important. And a blog is the centerpiece. Really should be the centerpiece of your digital marketing strategy that you then use Facebook with. You connect it to Facebook. How do you use it with Facebook? That's a whole other webinar, and I'm happy to talk about that. Also, by the way, like I said originally, we're going to send you an email, and you can sign up for a free website and digital and web marketing strategy, and we can take a look at what you're currently doing, and we can actually, give you some suggestions for different things that you could do to, not only build your blog, but also how can you tie it into Facebook? How can you use it to, build some automation to, to be able to grow your revenue without actually having to do manual work and having to learn how to use these different types of systems. So that's obviously what we do at Hubly, and we're happy to do a free assessment for anybody that's attending the webinar today.
Jono, we have a few questions that have come. The first is Emma came in late, and she's just asking, can you just clarify, since she's interested in Hubly as a service, can you explain how blogging fits into Hubly?
Yeah, so your Hubly site can have a blog. So we can actually give you the tool to do the blogging. So all the tools that I was showing in that little strategy. Let me bring it back up. So all the tools here, all these different stages, tying it to search, having a blog, having an opt-in, and having a thank you page, an email drip, all that stuff these are all parts of Hubly. So we give you the ability to make a blog and schedule it and make all this automation. So we make it really, really easy to actually engage and create and implement this whole strategy. It comes out of the box with Hubly. And we have our support team basically sets it all up for you as well. Tim, were there any other questions?
Yeah, there are a few. I'm not sure is asking, and this, I know you covered it, but I think, again, for a lot of us, this is very confusing. He's asking, what step do I take to create a blog?
Unfortunately, I had a hard time hearing that one. Could you just say that one more time, Tim?
I'm sorry, my phone's battery started to die, so I went online. He's asking what specific steps would he take to set up a blog?
So that would really depend on what tools he has access to. His website might have blogging functionality already inside of it. but he might need to add it to his website, or he might need to potentially use another tool that's a blogging tool. Like as I mentioned, every step of this strategy is each one of them. There's many tools and options for a blog. There's many options for scheduling. There's many options for email drip campaigns. There's many different solutions and services to manage Facebook ads and search engine optimization. All these things, there's each one of them has a whole, a myriad of different companies doing them individually. And so, again, a tool like Hubly, I mean, the reason why, ultimately I'm talking about this today is because we're obviously experts in this, but our tool actually gives you all of this stuff in one, in one place out of the box. So, but it's certainly not, you don't need Hubly to create this, but what you will need is somebody that knows how to manage all these different pieces and actually make them work together, which is quite a lot of work if you're not sure how to do that now. But also there's an endless list of consultants out there that are usually not too cheap, but they'll kind of build all this stuff for you like custom. They're not cheap, but there's a lot of ways to make this happen.
So going back to it, since I know that all of us who have looked at Hubly are still learning what it is, you've got a tool that does a bunch of stuff.
Kim, I think you just got cut off, at least
Groups?
for me.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, Tim, we're having a pretty hard time hearing you now.
Yeah, I can't hear you either. Jono and I are both having trouble hearing you.
Okay. I'm just going to go silent. You guys just keep talking.
Okay. What I can do, I guess since we've gone through really the topic of blogs, I can kind of continue and talk about, and maybe Tim, if you could mute yourself, because there's also a lot of feedback coming from your mic. If I could go through, as I mentioned, why does Hubly exist? Because there's, on average, 20 different schools. Each school is using 20 different communication tools, and there's a lot of paper still being used, and this is a lot of time. Each one of those tools usually takes 2 hours per month to manage because they all have their own database. So you've got 20 different databases to manually update every time parents change their email address. It's just a lot of time, and then also a lot of paper. And one of the biggest benefits of Hubly is that your office can basically go completely paperless with all the digital forms and all the stuff and documentations and reports and everything that we do digitally. We think paper still has a place in the school, but it's better to be used as crafts in the classroom rather than killing a bunch of trees so that you can collect information from parents. The core features of Hubly is we give you a private social network, that's social groups, and paperless administration, digital files, scheduling automation, and online payment management, whether it's incidentals or also tuition as well. And so Hubly, I'll just kind of run through this a little bit. This is what a Hubly group looks like. So again, we're getting away from blogging, but this is like, let's say you're a teacher and you want to send a message out to parents. You can just go in here and into your class group and type a message, and you can also track all the different messages, whether they're delivered or opened or clicked or even replied to, letting you know actually if things are being read by your parents. So it kind of gives every classroom or any other group kind of like, it's very similar like a Facebook group. And then, the messages and the communication goes right to the parent's email inbox, or it can go right to their phone too. So again, removing the need to stack your newsletters full of details and letting them be more focused on value-added content so that, the groups and the other digital communication forms inside Hubly really take care of, the day-to-day reminders and events and things like that, and make it really, really easy for the parents to get them, because it just comes right to where they already use their email for everything else, and that's where it comes, or their cell phone. And we've got inside each group there's calendars, so all these calendars can synchronize with each other, and the parents can actually subscribe to the calendar feed so that their events automatically show up on their iPhones and whatever calendar app they use. Again, the key thing is that parents don't actually even need to log into Hubly to see everything or have it automatically sent to them, making it much more pleasurable for the parents. The parents really don't like having to log into something. So at Hubly, we make it so that they don't have to log in. You can also send, when you want to send in and design those newsletters, we've got a really nice drag and drop newsletter designer. We've got a bunch of templates you can start from, and you can send newsletters out to specific groups or the whole school. And again, you can track them and you can schedule them to coincide with, your blog. We've got digital forms as well. Again, everything ties into groups. If there's a field trip as an example for a specific classroom or age level, parents can actually fill out the form completely online and even do a digital signature with their finger on any device, and it handles payments as well. And looking up the information, again, you're not dealing with stacks of paper. You're actually seeing digital entries that are basically organized in like a spreadsheet format that you can query and sort and print and export, just keeping information super easy. This is the thing that cuts down, people in the office, their workload gets cut down by 80% with this tool. If you can imagine, I'm sure everybody here, it resonates just how much time it takes to look things up by paper. Hours every day, just gathering information by paper. It should be a few clicks on your keyboard or your mouse. You should find the information within seconds, and that's what Hubly does for you. Just if you could think, like, if you needed to look up, as an example, let's say you had a picture and you wanted to put the picture on your website, or you wanted to put a picture in a blog post, right? And there's some kids in the picture, and you didn't know if you had photo release permission or not. So let's say you wanted to do a quick search to see what kids you don't have photo release permission for, right? And you want to make sure, like some schools would literally, they would have to open up a filing cabinet, take out a stack of take out the parent packet stack, thumb through to page 6 of like 500, maybe, 150 or 200 different, children, and see if hopefully the parent checked off the yes or no box. That can be time consuming, right? I mean, it's not fun. You get paper cuts, and the worst thing is it just takes a lot of time. So Hubly would make that literally, you could do that in 10 seconds. You could just query the entries of that form, and you could print it off as a list, or just view it. I mean, it's things that should take seconds today, unfortunately in a school still take, a lot longer than they should. And also these digital forms can be used for sharing information, records and stuff like that privately with parents. So we have student pages where the teacher can select the form, select the child, and enter that form for the child. The parent can get a notification if you want them to, and it can all end up. Again, it's kind of like a digital filing cabinet for each student that the parent has private access to. So all the different records or entries, of digital forms, and this could be a field trip or it could be a scope and sequence report. Our forms handle all of that stuff, and it just sends it to the right place. And then we also do scheduling automation. So this is that example of that page where a prospective parent could schedule a tour automatically without somebody having to write it down. It'll send automated reminders. This is good for parent-teacher conferences. This is good for school tours. Anything where you're scheduling with parents, Hubly can make it all automated. And we're getting great reports from our schools. Like they're getting the highest, turnout rates than they ever have. Actually, 100% turnout rates we're hearing, because our system made it easy for the parents and sent them reminders automatically. And you can set that up. It's kind of like you set it up and you forget it, and then it just notifies you when you want to be notified. And then we've got digital invoices with reporting and all that stuff as well. so that your parents can either pay online, or they can even bring you a check, and you can record that check according to that parent's account. But we handle the automated emails to the parents, reminding them, and they can pay right there online. When they get that email, they click on a button, takes them to their invoice. They can see all their history, their balance, and they can just pay it. You can also connect to checking accounts and do all that stuff too. And this is kind of like a high level, just like, the kind of automation that Hubly does. If you think about all the steps that are involved in, what all the steps of a prospective family when they first come into contact with you, again, from your blog, right? So like if you kick off this automation sequence after they hit your blog and then they sign up for an inquiry, then a staff person who wants to be notified, and then it can create a task to the admissions officer. The parent gets automated emails that leads them to book that tour, and then again, if they're booked, the admissions officer, whoever they get booked with, can be notified. They can update the status. Let's say they update the status from inquiry to accepted. Depending on the status, it can send off other automated emails to the parents congratulating them on acceptance. And at any point in time, you can see where all the different parents are at what stage in your enrollment process. So you can say, oh, we've got 15 parents that are on the waiting list, and we've got 5 parents that have been accepted, and 4 of those parents have paid their invoice. So it just gives you a really easy, automated, and trackable experience to your onboarding, which can be really, really time-consuming if you're doing all this manually, or it can be incredibly simple and not time-consuming if you use a system that automates it. And then the last thing Hubly does is, actually a lot of schools use Hubly. Hubly it can be either it can be used as an additional website, or it can actually be used as a replacement website. So some schools, like Hubly, so Hubly can be used as just like a marketing engine. So like, we have schools that just spent, $25,000, $30,000 on this incredible new designed website. But Hubly is like an additional website. It's just a marketing website where they can create landing pages and campaigns, and we get them to the top of search engines, and we're just driving more and more prospective families to that school using Hubly. Whereas doing that on their beautiful custom designed website, to hire their designer to make a landing page would take $1,000 or $1,500, maybe $2,000 per page. Hubly, you can just do it, instantly. Basically, you can create landing pages for any specific keywords you want to target, or let's say you're doing a Facebook campaign, either for donations or for enrollment increases or whatever. You can just create a landing page on Hubly with a click and tie it all in. So it's really is meant to be a marketing website, but a lot of our customers actually use their Hubly site as their website replacement, because it's a lot better than what they currently have. It looks better because there is a lot of design customization features, meaning you can add your logo, you can change the colors, you can drag and drop the layout, but and that's usually enough for most schools. Is enough, and so that's really what Hubly does in a nutshell. I figured since I'll take the opportunity to show you, since we had a few more minutes. Certainly, if you want to contact us, you can just go to hubly.com, and that's our phone number. And we certainly, like I said, we're going to follow up with you. We've got that offer for both the download as like a cheat sheet for how to manage your blog, and also a free website assessment where one of our team members will actually take a look at what's going on your site right now. Do you have a blog? How are you currently blogging? How are you tying it into other tools? And we can give you also just kind of a grade report on your website. How is it doing? Like, is it optimized for search engines? Is it secure? Is it mobile friendly? All these things that actually Google really looks at to help get you to the top of those search engine results and get you the traffic of prospective parents.
Jono, that's great. I have one question that came in from Emma in Scotland is, what's your opinion on allowing parents to comment on blog posts?
So that's a really good question, and you know, I'm on the side personally of you should let them, because there is no better way to teach the world, or basically more specifically other prospective parents that might see that, how you handle responses. Like, what's the thing that everyone's worried about? What if they say something, or they complain, or they give you a bad comment or something, right? Obviously, it's great if they say, wow, this school looks great, and thank you so much, and I love you, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, my kids go there, this is the best, right? But what if they say something that's, negative, right? Well, most schools, I know the mentality is a little bit more traditional, and we just want to not let them do that, right? But I want you to consider something. What if they did that and you got notified, which you would instantly, you'd be notified, and you would actually be even able, you could set it up so that you have to first approve the comment. So it doesn't even go public until you approve it. But if you get a negative comment on a blog post, if somebody's complaining or saying something negative about the school, you could actually reply to it and show everybody how you handle that and your response. And I think that the power of that, I mean, that's what every single big business is seeing today. Like Coca-Cola, everybody, Best Buy, they have Facebook pages, and they let people go on and complain and say negative things about them, because they have people that will actually respond to it and show, because everybody knows there's complaints. It's not like, oh my God, everybody's just happy and there's never an unhappy customer. Everybody knows there's unhappy customers, but what they don't know is how the company responds to complaints and how they service those unhappy customers. If you can show a great response and then direct the conversation, that's an opportunity to win somebody over.
Jono,
Yeah, I think
that's a really great answer. It's very, very helpful, because, as you say, everybody knows that there are going to be complaints from someone sometime about something, and that isn't so much the issue. It's that other issue that you just brought up as, how do you deal with them? I think that's really important. Thank you for bringing that.
Yeah, and I thank you, Emma, for that question. And I think that's the mentality that is what I'm finding in general after about 7 years of helping schools is that the trends seem to come a little bit later in the education sector and what's going on out there. And I think there's a lot of reasons why that makes sense. There's a lot of concern around privacy, and you're dealing with kids and it's sensitive stuff, and obviously I think everyone would agree. The people that run schools, a lot of times they come up from they're a teacher, and then they become a director and maybe an owner, but they're not necessarily coming from an MBA background or a marketing expert. So they're learning business kind of through doing, which is a great way to learn it. But there's also some expertise that gets missed along the way a lot of times, and that's where tools like Hubly really come to help and make kind of backfill those gaps. And that's why we do all this content, because we also want to be not just giving you the tools, but we want to help schools understand how to use the tools and how to think about them and how to approach communication and how to make it match with the expectations of today, of their parents today, because the parents today want and expect what they get everywhere else. And it's problematic when the school has a very old school traditional mentality that doesn't jive with the way parents expect to be communicated with their existing behaviors, because the way Facebook does things and the way Google does things, guess what? Your website and your digital strategy has to match, because your parents are engaging that every single day, 1,000 times a day. And if it doesn't match with that, right? If it's the one thing that works differently, there's a cognitive dissonance there, right? There's not, like, we get into like psychology of motivation. People are going to have this, like, and this is what I talk about, like training parents to ignore you. If you don't coincide with behaviors of the rest of the world, right? If you actually act differently, if you communicate differently, and if you expect, if you don't match the expectations of parents coming to your website or engaging your different communication tools, you're going to run into low engagement, and that's why parent engagement is the holy grail of the education sector. Across the entire sector, every single district or ministry or state education organization you go to, there's pages and pages and pages talking about parent engagement. There's there's departments of education at the top Ivy League schools focused on parent engagement. There's millions and millions and millions of dollars going into NGOs talking about parent engagement, going to research on parent engagement, and it's all saying no one's actually doing anything. That's the problem today, is that schools are not, like, when you want to fix the problem of parent engagement, you have to actually engage parents the way they're willing to be engaged. It's not about what to say. I think everybody in this audience knows what to say to parents. I think they know how to teach children. I just don't think that really they know really how to engage the parents, like tactically, on a tactical level. I think the tools are being misused or not being used, or just broken.
Jono, I'm sorry to stop here, but this is Michael speaking. Unfortunately, I have a commitment that I have to leave. Thank you so very much. Go ahead, but I'm going to have to leave.
Okay. Well, I think we really run out of time anyway, and Jono, you've done a great job of summing it up there. The bottom line, from my experience, is most of us have reached the point where we understand, in theory, that this is important, but I think many people are kind of where John Montour is at, How do you even set up a blog, no less,
right.
What do you write about? And there's a lot for people to learn, and what I appreciate is that you are one of those people who understands, I think, digital marketing well. There are other people that know it, but you're willing to share your time with us, and I really appreciate it. You've also created an online tool that seems to supplement nicely what we do, and as you point out, you can kind of merge a number of different digital databases that you use together using Hubly. So it's certainly for those people who choose to work with it, it seems to offer something that makes it a lot easier. So, Joan, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today.
Well, it's always a pleasure. I always enjoy talking about this stuff. For some reason, I'm passionate about it, and I don't know why. It just gets me going, and that's why I made Hubly, because I want to see schools have an easier time bringing their communication up to the expectations of their parents. And I know that that's going to help parent engagement, and that's why we exist. So it's always a pleasure to have a platform like this with a great organization like the Montessori Foundation, who I learned very quickly by reading, Tomorrow's Child, understands the value of giving parents helpful, useful, educational, inspiring, uplifting information, content, because that's you can't do that enough. You really can't. And so I'll just I'll leave on that, and I'll thank everybody again, and we will follow up with you again to give you access to download something that, basically a summary of all this content, and also the opportunity to have us, kind of take a look at what you're doing and give you, an assessment of your existing, digital communication strategy, and just show you where you can fill in the gaps. And I just want to mention, it's not going to be, it will absolutely not require you to make a Hubly purchase. It is just going to let you know, where you're missing things, and we're happy to give you suggestions of other tools as well that you could use if you want to go on a more individual tool basis. So thanks, guys. It's been a real pleasure, and good luck to everybody, and happy communicating.
Thank you, Jono. So next week, we're going to switch topics. We're going to be talking about fundraising. And we're going to talk about the typical beginning of the year, mid-year, end-of-year fundraising special event where there's typically an auction or a raffle or a blend of different things. Our guest is going to be a gentleman from the Wow Factor. His name is Brendan Lillis, and he's going to talk with us about his experience with the use of high-quality trips and things like that as part of a online, as a live or online raffle or auction item. We just tried something with him, and I'm kind of impressed. He's got definitely things that are different from what most people see. And those of you who are on our mailing list may have noticed that we're actually doing a fundraiser ourselves right at this moment to $50,000 for the new Montessori Way video project, which will be free videos you can use on your school's website aimed at answering parent questions and showcasing Montessori research and the quality of Montessori without any brand of a particular Montessori organization. So if you haven't already opened that email, I encourage you to do so. We are giving people a chance at a free trip that Brendan has donated to the foundation, and you get to choose a up to 6 people South African safari, an incredible place to stay in Ireland, or a wonderful place to stay in Costa Rica. So take a look at those emails, and if you're interested, we're saying for every $50 you donate as a school or an individual, you get one chance in the drawing, which will be held at the end of June. So hope you'll do that. Anyway, next week I wanted to bring Brendan on. I've worked with a lot of people like this over the years. I think that what he's got to say is different from what I've heard before, and it's a no-risk situation for the school, which is, for a lot of us, one of the big challenges. So it's worth at least taking a look at, and I want to learn more myself. And quite often, when I want to learn more, I will invite someone on to talk to me as well as you. So I hope you find these things enjoyable. Also, if you have not rejoined your school's membership in the Montessori Family Alliance, remember there's still time to get on the list in time for the summer special issues and the back-to-school issue that will come out in September. So again, watch for email coming from those of us at Montessori.org, and we hope you find everything useful. And I hope we're not training you to not pay attention to our email. Anyway, Jono, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate having you. We'll see everyone next week. It's Tim Seldin from the Montessori Foundation signing off.